Hello everyone and welcome to making a simple motion tween. If I remember correctly, the step-by-step in this, which is a file that's going to give you the step-by-step that you can watch or sort of read along with, creates a situation with this video. It might be two videos, so I'll probably stop this 10-12 minutes into this, and they will likely be a motion tween part 1 and a motion tween part 2. Since this is an early video, we're going to be going over a lot of sort of the basics here. The idea being we need to sort of understand this workspace and some of the simple tasks in terms of where they go, where they come into the timeline, etc. Okay. As mentioned many times, and at the beginning of this video, I will be reading along my own step-by-steps. So in D2L, you have a making a simple motion tween file, and it has step 1 through whatever. And I'm going to be following these exact same instructions so that what you see me doing here on the stage and in the library is exactly what you will be doing. During the semester, there might be times where I only have a video. There might be times where I only have a step-by-step. But for the most part, and I would say in these first few weeks, we will have both of these. Students have given me a lot of feedback over the years that having both of these is helpful. So especially here at the beginning, we're going to be doing that. So I'm going to hop right in. This tutorial is actually broken up into two things. One is creating the graphic, part 1, and part 2 is creating the tween. So one quick thing before we head into what we're doing, and this isn't in the step-by-step, but it lives up here. You see if we click here, and you might have some of this cut off, but you should be able to see all these different options. Animator, Classic, debug, etc. I'm going to be working in Classic, okay? And Classic is just sort of a simple layout of the actual software. One thing that might look different on yours is where this toolbox is. I'm doing these screen capture videos, and I kind of want the toolbox to be seen a little bit more, so I pull it out so you guys can sort of see it in relation to what's going on the stage and the timeline, etc. Okay, so my Animate is already open, but I am going to sort of recreate what likely Animate looks like for you. So we would go to File, New, and I'm on step 2 right now because I already have Animate open. It says when Animate opens, it will give you your screen asking what type of file you'd like. This is actually new, so we have this character animation, and then we have these presets down here. So step 3 says choose character animation. All these other things are sort of like if you were going to make a game, if you're going to maybe do a banner ad, if you're going to do something for the web, but we're going to stick, because this is an animation class, to character animation. I also want you to click on the HD. Essentially what this means, and you'll see these numbers down here, this is a sort of a physical size, so this has to do with pixels. And when I click on this HD, you'll see that that's 1280 by 720. This is a decent size that we can sort of see what you're doing. The other thing to sort of notice over here is the frame rate. The frame rate is 30. This is 30 frames per second. If you look up here, you'll see that at frame 30 in our timeline, and this is where the action is, it says 1 second. So at any given point in your timeline up here, you can sort of see, oh, what I'm doing takes up 2 seconds, or it takes up 3 seconds. So the frame rate is sort of how many of these little tiny frames over here we see per second. 30 frames per second is, we're going to see sort of a lot of, hopefully, detail within that short amount of time. So I've already created this, so I'm going to sort of X out of this. You would just hit create, and you should get this blank white screen. Now, we're into the action here. Step 4, at the top where there are various menu items, choose Insert New Symbol. So I'm going to go up and Insert New Symbol. I get this box right here. And we're going to name this a very sort of simple thing, and you'll see where we're going with this. This is going to be green ball. Okay. It says on step 6, make sure the drop-down menu is labeled set to graphic. So I'm going to pull this down. You'll see 3 different types here. I'm going to briefly go over these. Movie clips are more complicated. This is, and we'll do an exercise, I believe, next week, where you make sort of a guy do a jumping jack. And the guy sort of lives over in the library here doing his jumping jack, and then we put him on the stage. to do that thing. What we're doing is much more simple. This is a graphic. We're simply going to be making as the symbol states, a green ball. Button, we're going to work on that later in the semester. A button has interactivity attached to it, essentially. And it allows us to go from one area of a movie to another. Don't worry about movie clips or buttons just yet. We're doing some simple things, and so we want this to be a graphic. Now, what I want you to do, and this is sort of noticing, it's not necessarily a doing, and this is step 7. You will leave the stage at this point and enter the library where you will create the graphic. Let's think about this layout over here. We have our library. These are where our symbols live, okay? And we have our stage over here. This is where the action happens. I always say imagine it like a play where you sort of have your characters off stage and then they come in and then they go out and they come in and they go out. We're essentially going into an area that's kind of a sketchbook where we make these symbols. So notice what happens when I click OK, okay? I go into this sort of infinitely white area, and this is not the stage anymore. I'm inside the library, inside green ball, okay? And I'm going to show you here in a minute the differentiation. Here, right here, and you'll see this just below your layers. Our layers are right here. We have green ball. That means we're in green ball. We are not in the scene, okay? And I can go back to the scene where I have that more confined stage, but I want to make green ball. Okay, so it says click on the stroke color box and choose the white box with the red stripe through it. No stroke color. Click on the fill color at the bottom of your toolbox and choose a shade of green. Over here we have our stroke, okay, and our fill colors. I want to click on this and choose no stroke. Okay, let's see what that means. And I want to go to my fill color and I want a green. Okay. What these sort of denote is when you draw an object or shape, what do we want that shape filled with? Okay, in this case it's going to be green. And what do we want the outer stroke color to be? Stroke is something often you're going to sort of turn off. Okay, so we did that. We did that step 8. Next it says choose the oval tool in the toolbox. Okay, oval tool looks like an oval. Those of you who have worked with pieces of Adobe software before, you'll note that any little tool that has this teeny tiny rectangle, or sorry, teeny tiny arrow below it, that's going to be something that has other tools underneath it. Okay, so here we have the rectangle tool has the rectangle primitive tool. The oval tool has a similar thing. Some of these things like the pen tool, the bone tool, which we'll use later. These tools have important things underneath them, so please note that in your toolbox. Next, it says click and hold and draw the circle. You can make a perfect circle by holding Shift on our keyboard. And what we want to do, and you can sort of probably barely see this, or you should be able to see it pretty well, we have this center hash mark on our symbol green ball. Okay, the idea being is you want, generally speaking, to sort of center symbols on this center hash mark. You might get into more complicated symbols later, but always get into the habit of drawing that green ball or whatever symbol it is right on top there. So I'm going to hold Shift. Maybe you can hear me hitting the keyboard. I'm going to hold down Shift. I'm going to click, hold, and I'm going to draw that green circle. Next, and we're introducing a new tool. It says use the selection tool, the black arrow, and select the circle you have drawn and position it over the center. So this is just a way to introduce this simple tool. I'm going to sort of get that, and you'll see that it wants to sort of move right into that center. Okay, we can always use, and I'm hopefully making a loud enough noise you can hear it on my keyboard. We can use the arrows on my keyboard to position that as well. Okay, now I am going to eventually here in a minute hop over to the second video, as I mentioned, but I want to sort of end with our sort of setup and where we are. We are inside green ball. We are essentially in the library. Okay, I can go over to scene 1, which I'm going to do right now, and I have nothing. Okay, because I haven't done anything in the timeline, and green ball lives in the library. Okay, so you should have at this point green ball in the library, and our stage, if we sort of click over on this scene 1, is ready to go. So I'm going to stop the video right here and do a part 2, which is going to be creating the tween.